Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. We've got 4 topics today. We're going to dive into an update on the tech core. For those that have been on previous presentations that Sarah's allowed me, for all of you guys, this is an update. And then we're going to go into, does Arizona have enough water for the growth, the explosive growth that we're projecting? Do we have enough electricity? And then also this new bill, this new state bill, which is SB 1514, that comes online in January, which is for accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. I'm an ADU specialist now. I went to get some training in Seattle a couple of months ago, so I could wrap my head around what this is going to be. I'm planning to build 2 of these 2 ADUs on my land, and so yeah, I wanted to just see what it's all about and why the state has jumped in to try to jumpstart this, try to get this going for all this. So let's begin. Am I still sharing, Sarah, or are you sharing right now?
No, you need to do another share screen. Oop, we got more people coming in.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get going here. So why do we need so many chips? Something that I want you guys to think about, a few questions on the front end. I'm hopefully going to answer these. The reason why we think this is important is every residential real estate agent needs to have a few bullets to combat the rhetoric, or to just have a ability to be a technical advisor for your clients that come into town. A lot of people are going to transition into Arizona like they have been for decades. That is going to probably accelerate over the next 10 years because of the tech core, because of the other jobs that are growing. The adjective that most people are using is explosive job growth. And these are manufacturing jobs. So it couldn't get any better than this. Manufacturing jobs are meaty enough for people to be able to afford mortgages, to be able to afford new cars, to be able to afford Starbucks, to be able to have a good life, and then also spend some money, on discretionary needs as well. But primarily, they're going to be able to buy houses. So that's good news for us. And steady as she goes. This is just an update to make sure everything is going in the direction that we need, so that we have the infrastructure there when the market, picks up again. Do we have enough inventory to sell? And is the climate there for people to buy homes? So one of the reasons is we consume a lot of chips in this world. It's shocking how many chips each person uses on a daily basis. And then we'll dive into why Phoenix is a tech core. Why was it chosen by Taiwan Semi and other semiconductors? And then we'll talk about water. Like I said, I get a question a lot from my commercial customers from out of town. Aren't you running out of water? Do you have enough electricity? So I want to give you a few data points, a few bullets that you can talk to about that to answer those questions. And then again, this new Arizona accessory dwelling unit law that's coming online in January. So let's get started. So Taiwan Semi is a manufacturer of semiconductors, and there is some specific criteria that is needed in order for a location to be chosen. Taiwan Semi is the 18th semiconductor manufacturer to make chips in Arizona, starting in 1940s with Motorola, and it continues to this day. The other giant that's in Arizona right now is Intel, and they are expanding down in Chandler as well. But the reason is because of a number of considerations. Taiwan Semi chose to land in Phoenix about 6 years ago now. One of them was we already have quite a focus on tech jobs for the bunny suit technicians all the way up to the engineers, the PhDs in material science. So there has been a long-standing association with all of the universities and the educational systems in Arizona, including Maricopa County community of colleges, to have this criteria so that kids can jump out of school and be ready to take jobs in the fab companies, the semiconductor manufacturers, and their subcontractors. Arizona has a pro-business climate. We have the Arizona Commerce Authority. We have the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. Both of those have been to Taiwan 7 or 8 times in the last year. And both of these agencies have been very good at welcoming and helping companies land here that are supporting Taiwan Semi. There's about 55 companies that are going to join Taiwan Semi here. There's 37, 38. I actually have a meeting with one tomorrow. I'm going to show them a number of warehouse and industrial spaces in the Deer Valley Air Park area. And they met with GPAC on Monday, and then I'm going to provide a tour for some sites that might work for them as a subcontractor to TSMC. So we very much have a pro-business clients. A number of these visits to Taiwan included certain mayors and also the governor. Katie Hobbs has been over there a number of times this year in support of helping the subcontractors come and join TSMC. Electric power. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that's one of the criteria. That's a critical criteria because these fabs take a lot of electricity to fuse the different layers of the silicon together in the specific silicon blocks, and then cut them into die and then package them and get them ready for their customers. Another criteria is low natural disasters. We don't have a lot of storms here that shake the ground. Seismically speaking, we are very stable. If you've been over to California and you have been camping, I was just over in San Bernardino 2 weekends ago, and I was camping at a motocross track, and there was 30 or 40 tremors per night. The ground shakes over there all the time. San Bernardino is in a fault line area, so if these factories shake, you got to throw all the work in progress away and you got to start over again. You can't have it, you can't have the ground shaking. So that's why you don't see any fabs in California. You see a lot of engineering companies in California, but the fabs are not located there. One landowner. So we had this 5,500 acres available, and it was owned by the Arizona State Land Trust. So Taiwan Semi petitioned the state of Arizona to purchase this land, and it went to auction. Taiwan Semi purchased it. They won the land. And in that blue highlight there, you see the core. So that's the 1,100 plus or minus acres that Taiwan Semi owns in the middle of 5,500 acres around it. Recently, about 2 months ago, the MAC group out of New York purchased about 2,300 acres that are north and around, the northern part of this tech core and the western part of this tech core were purchased by the MAC group. They are a very well-respected industrial and warehouse manufacturer. This is their third site in Phoenix. They're already in the Deer Valley Air Park area. They're already in North Scottsdale by Bell and the 101 freeway, building a big industrial park. And now this 2,300 acres that they just won the auction is going to be their third large industrial complex. So water is another issue. You see Lake Pleasant in this image here. That's one of 9 lakes in our watershed that's it's involved in the ability for us to say to customers, we have the infrastructure, we have plenty of water. We are doing much better than many other cities in the United States of comparable size. So we have a good story to tell with water, and Lake Pleasant, of course, is just one of a number of lakes that help to collect the rain and the snow melt up north so that we have it available for later in the year. And so we can expand as well. We can continue to grow. We have a mature supply chain. Again, Taiwan Semi is the 18th semiconductor manufacturer in Arizona. So of course, there's already quite a large supplier network that is here. And then of course, you see that picture of the F-35, the Raptor at Davis Monthan Airport in Tucson. There is a simulation. Right now, there's a number of our friendly nations that we sell this F-35 to that go down to Davis Monthan and go through the simulation. And then they come up here to Glendale and Luke Air Force Base is where they actually start flying them. They go down to the Barry Goldwater flight and tank area down in southern Arizona, and that's where they learn how to fly this thing. So do you think that might be part of the reason why they chose Phoenix as where they're going to land? With the wranglings of China and, their saber rattling about taking back Taiwan, this is part of national security to have the chips that are consumed in the United States be manufactured in the United States. So Taiwan Semi made a strategic decision to not try to support one global supply. They said, that is dead. We're going to support and supply our customers in the West from the West, and that is this tech core here in Phoenix. And we're going to support our customers in the East from the East, and that is with some of their fabs in Taiwan. And also they have a mega fab complex of 6 fabs in Japan. And if we are able to continue to grow and help them construct this here, that's what this will probably become, is a 6 fab mega fab complex. So they'll be out here building this for probably another 8 to 10 years if they do choose to build a 4th, 5th, and 6th fab. Again, plan of record right now is 3 fabs. That video that we were watching shows the update of them constructing their 2nd fab, which is called Fab 22. The one right next to it, their first fab was fabbed. So a lot of criteria goes into the decision for a big company like this. And luckily we had, we checked off all those boxes and they chose us. So we're very grateful to have this. It'll be probably around 60 to 70,000 permanent manufacturing jobs with the core, with Taiwan Semi and their 55 subcontractors that are going to be moving into this area. So again, Taiwan Semi is a foundry, a chip foundry, as opposed to like what Intel does. Intel makes chips for customers. They have about 400 customers, where Taiwan Semi has, Intel makes their chips and sells them to the world, sells them to everybody. They brand them themselves, where Taiwan Semi doesn't brand their chips. They have 400 customers that come to them with engineering plans, and Taiwan Semi builds them to their customers' plans. So they don't brand them themselves. They let the customer decide where they're going to put the silicon blocks, how much memory is going to be on board, how much graphics is going to be dedicated on board on the chip, meaning, the landscape of the chip that's about the size of your fingernail. That is very valuable real estate. And, the customer gets to decide, how much of that real estate they're going to spend on graphics or on memory or on compute horsepower or on, edge networking or all the different little silicon blocks that go into making a chip. The customer decides that. So in a way, Intel only dances with themselves, branding it and selling it and guessing what the market wants, where Taiwan Semi doesn't guess. They make it to their customer's design. So how's that going? TSMC has some very large customers. In the United States, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, do you want me to advance the slides?
I think I just advanced it. Did you guys, are you seeing the customer list now?
No, we don't see your screen. We see my screen.
Okay.
Here, I'll stop sharing. You do this, share your screen.
Go ahead and advance to the next slide. Yeah, so this is the customer list. This slide is the TSMC's top customers.
Hold on, let me get back to that.
Yeah, sorry about the technical difficulties here. Laptop seems to be a little slow right now.
I think I'm on the right slide.
Yeah, so you'll see that the gross margin of Taiwan Semi is above Qualcomm, NVIDIA, Intel, AMD, and Apple. So 8 of their top 10 customers are here in the United States. They are here in the Western United States. You'll notice that Apple, this is a little bit dated, they're almost 30% of the revenue that Taiwan Semi makes is from Apple. So by far, they're their #1 customer. Apple is a fabless technology company, a fabless consumer electronics company that we all know, and they don't have their own fabs. They rely solely on TSMC for all of their chips. They used to buy some of them from Intel, but now they're sole sourced from Taiwan Semi. Qualcomm is their number 2 customer. They're over in San Diego. They have a lot of wireless network protocols that they own, and they put infrastructure in so our cell phones can talk to each other. AMD, number 3, is a direct competitor. They make chips. They have a number of fabs themselves. Broadcom is in networking as well, also in California. NVIDIA, you probably heard about NVIDIA. Their stock is below and up. They're in AI. They're big in AI. Their 2 largest customers are Google and Amazon. So when I say that it's important for our United States national security to have our chips made in the United States, Taiwan semi chips, it's because these customers are here in the US and we don't want any spyware. We don't want any shenanigans going on in the silicon. It's very hard to decipher that.
Do you have a pen over there that works?
I'm sorry, say it again.
You're good. I muted her.
So anyway, they're highly profitable. The takeaway here is we've got a company in town that's highly profitable, and they have a lot of customers that are here in the Western states. So you see why it's important that that Taiwan Semi's here in Arizona. I'm very grateful that we're here. Okay, we can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So some recent news. Again, plan of record is 3 fabs. That's going well, steady as she goes. They're in study and discovery for an additional 3 fabs up there in North Phoenix. If they do that, they'll be building here for probably another 8 to 10 years. They've also contracted with Amcor. Amcor is a company that's headquartered in Tempe. I used to work closely with Amcor back when I worked at Intel. Great company. They do packaging. They do that black little package that the silicon die goes into and is wire bonded and adhered to it and encapsulated and tested. So Taiwan Semi chose Amcor. They're building a 500,000 square foot clean room in Peoria, in the new innovation area of Peoria, right next door to the tech port here. So that's great news. That just came out a few months ago. They've been testing the first fab. It officially launches and opens up next quarter, their first quarter of 2025. But their yields are coming up to that of their Taiwan plants and their Japanese plants. So that's great news. When you build a factory like this, you've got a wafer that's about the size of a frozen pizza. It's a 300 millimeter wafer. And your goal is to get plus 95% yield off that wafer, meaning you're only scrapping less than 5% of the chips, which is very difficult to do, but very important so that you can maintain your revenue, you can maintain your funding R&D and things, everything in the future. Now on the other side of town, like I said, Intel is building 2 new fabs to join their 4 fabs that they already have down on their Ocotillo campus. They're investing about $60 billion in these 2 new fabs. But all is not well at Intel. If you've been following the news, Intel is very shaky right now. They changed their stripes about a year ago. Their new leader, Pat Gelsinger, brilliant guy. I worked with him. He was a young engineer director when I was there, and now he's their CEO. Great guy. He's dedicated some of their fab capacity to foundry activities about a year ago. Which means they're trying to get customers to trust them with their designs and say, we'll build to your design, whatever you think you want. Well, it's not going well. And Qualcomm has approached Intel for a possible acquisition a couple of months ago. That's been put on hold until the election gets over. And then, the federal government, because this is a big deal, this is a couple $100 billion deal. They have to take a look at it, make sure there isn't any antitrust or anti-competitive, ramifications that would come about if Qualcomm actually did purchase Intel. It's hard to believe for us that worked at Intel because it was a giant company back then, but they've been struggling for about 6 or 7 years to hit their volumes that they've committed to their customers, to hit their roadmap dates that they've committed to their customers. They've been faltering, and that's a death nail for a fab. You got to hit your dates, you got to hit your volumes that you've committed to. If you don't do that, then they go looking elsewhere. The CHIPS Act, again, that was something that was in place now for 4 years and dedicated $50 billion. We've gotten our fair share of that. We need more, and we're applying. The GPAC and primarily GPAC, they've helped about 20 small companies in the tech sector go after that money. It's a pretty lengthy application process, but they've been very good at helping the smaller companies, the startup companies, go get some of that CHIPS Act money. Virgin Atlantic just put in a new spaceship manufacturing facility in Mesa, Arizona. Northrop Grumman is celebrating their completion of their expansion of their satellite facility. Boeing is also expanding into Mesa with 150,000 square foot fabrication center. Boeing, if you don't know, in Mesa makes the Apache attack helicopter. That has been out there since the 70s. And that's one of the flagship programs that they create out there. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So let's talk about electricity. Where do we get it from? Where do we get our electricity in Arizona? So almost half, 46% of our electricity comes from natural gas. We burn natural gas every night to create electricity the next day. That map that you see in the middle, that is the pipeline map that comes out of West Texas, as well as El Paso, Albuquerque area. You see that several pipelines that branch off, heading towards Phoenix, also heading north towards Flagstaff. And these are pipelines for gasoline, for jet fuel, for diesel, and natural gas. So with Palo Verde, the next slide over, you see the 3 nuclear reactors that sit west of our town in Buckeye. That is over 70% of our electricity comes from natural gas and Palo Verde. Coal, we still have some coal plants up in the northern part of Arizona, is about 10%. Solar is coming online with about 10%. Hydro dam, you see Hoover Dam there in the picture. That's about 5% of our electricity. And then also wind. We have some infrastructure in wind already. So the takeaway here is if you have an electric vehicle, which are coming online quickly, we see a lot of Teslas, we see a lot of Lucids, we see a lot of vehicles out there. It really isn't a matter of fact, it isn't a fact of whether you are not burning something for your electricity. Because remember, electricity is not an energy source. Electricity is the outcome of an energy source. Until we learn how to harness lightning bolts and put them inside and put them into the grid without blowing it up, electricity is not an energy source. So we have to burn something in order to create electricity, or collect it through hydro dams or wind. And that is coming online. But right now, it's either a question of whether you're going to burn on site, meaning if you have a gasoline powered vehicle or a hybrid that also has, a gasoline engine that stores energy in the battery, or if you're going to burn it off site, through natural gas or Palo Verde or, coal. So that's how we get our electricity. Do we have enough? Yes, we have enough. Most of Palo Verde is sold on the grid to Los Angeles County, to Albuquerque. The 18 western states are all connected in they call it the Western grid. And so electricity can be put on the market and sold as a commodity. So we have headroom with Palo Verde plant. We're investing in large areas. There's a 3,600 acre petition for a land for a solar field out by Quartzsite right now that Hanwha has put in that application with Arizona Land Trust. So we're expanding on, solar and wind, but we're not quite there yet. So is there headroom? Yes, there's headroom for growth, for more homes, for more manufacturers to come in there. But we need to expand production. We need to expand the grid, and we should be fine with electricity. So that's the takeaway for your customers is we have enough electricity in Arizona. So let's move on to the next slide, Sarah. Let's talk about ADUs for a little bit. Accessory dwelling units. This was a law that was passed about 4 months ago now. It is for the cities in Arizona that have at least 75,000 in population. There are 408 cities in Arizona, and there are 17 that have a population of more than 75,000. That's most of the cities in Maricopa County and a few down in Pinal County. So it concerns us. And so what's coming is the right for a builder, for a developer, for somebody that owns a home in South Scottsdale and Peoria and Glendale, in a mature neighborhood, that they can put in a couple of ADUs. These can be detached ADUs. They can be attached like a converted garage. They can be bi-level, like if you have a second floor and you want to make that the ADU. They can be in the basement. They can be another construction on top of the garage. So various ways, various parts of the existing structure or a new structure. And like I said, up to two. What defines an ADU is it has a living space, it has a bedroom, has a bathroom, and it has a kitchen. Usually most of these designs that we are seeing are that they do have a kitchen that's kind of in the living space. The footprint can be 75% up to 1,000 square feet of the existing house. So if the house is 1,000 square feet, then this footprint, the size of the ADU can be 750 square feet. Now, the state has also said that you can rent this out. It can be a rental property. It can be an income producing property. And the cities can't get in front of that. So it needs to be a minimum of a 90-day rental, or it can be a month-to-month rental. And again, this begins next January. And so the cities, most of them, I went to the Scottsdale City Council meeting about 2-3 weeks ago, as they're wrapping their head around it, and adding their amendments to it, and trying to fold it in to their general plan, their 2030 general plan, which is anybody that builds in Scottsdale works to that general plan. So, let's go to the next slide. So a little bit deeper dive here. In Arizona, why do these make sense? Dirt is expensive, especially in the cities, with 75K or above, and land is scarce. Services are nearby, meaning that you have the utility services, you have Starbucks, you've got supermarkets, you got Walgreens, you got medical, medical infrastructure established nearby. There's also transit nearby. Existing infrastructure in place. Again, that's the utility lines that are already there. And then there is a need. So in Arizona, if you look at that map down there, we're kind of a darker shade of yellow. That says we're about 120,000 units, 120,000 housing units under what we need, what we're currently forecasted to need in Arizona over the next couple of years. So the need is there. The ADU market is for smaller households, multi-generational households, people that want to live with their parents, they want to live with their grandparents, people who want to age in place. This is a big thing for Arizona. A lot of people come here to retire. So we have a lot of older folks, maybe they can't afford where they're living. Maybe they're on a reverse mortgage. And so, this helps them to stay in their house by having a little rental income, or maybe they take up residence in the ADU. And then, maybe a family member takes over the mortgage, on the existing house. People who want to create wealth, of course, wealth building opportunities as rental property, flexibility with their housing options, and people who want to host family and friends. So the graph here shows one of the reasons why we're in this state, in that houses have gotten much larger and the number of people that live in each house has gotten much smaller over the last number of decades. I grew up in South Scottsdale. We had 1,100 square foot home, and there was 6 of us that lived in there. Today, it looks like our houses have about 3,000 square feet and about 2.5 people live in each house. This is on a national average, but I'm sure you guys have experienced that as well with your customer bases, that there's smaller people living in bigger boxes. So it just, this is a way where you can put another smaller housing unit in the backyard, closer to the lot lines, using existing infrastructure that's in the ground. And the cities can't really stop it. That's what the state law wanted to do, is to say, this is a way we're going to address shortage of housing. This is the way we're going to address homelessness. Affordable housing is to allow for these ADUs to go into the backyard. Okay, let's move on here. So this is a trivia question here, and put your answers in the chat box. This is McDowell Road in the 1970s. You see a couple of Volkswagens in there, a camper, but But that big garbage truck, if you grew up in Phoenix, you remember when this thing came out, it was innovative. So the trivia is, what did they name this? What was what was the friendly name that they gave this particular garbage truck? Put your answers in the chat. We'll get to that later, but let's go to the next slide for the Dr.
Okay.
Walker. There you go.
Before we advance, Kim Frederick, what about communities with HOAs on the ADUs?
HOAs cannot block ADUs. This is a state law. HOAs don't have the authority above the state law. There's been a number of HOA lawsuits that have gone to the Supremes in Arizona that have been they've lost, shot down. So in other words, if an HOA had the original founders, the original writers of an HOA, the people that developed that housing community, either specified that these houses could be second homes or rental homes, or they did not specify anything at all, then later on, decades later, if there's a new board that's in place and they want to amend and ratify the CCNRs to restrict rental properties, they can't do that. The only way that you can do that is if you get 2/3 vote from the community and you pay people out from that intrinsic value of the original purchase price, that it did include the ability to use these as rental properties. The only way that an HOA can say we're not going to have rentals in here is if it was originally written in when the CCNRs were drafted by the founders of that community, by the developers and founders of that community in the original marketing literature. So this has been tested in the Arizona Supremes, it's been tested in the US Supreme Court. And the HOAs that try to amend it in 1980 or 1990 or 2012, those have to be stripped out. So again, it's pro-business for communities with HOAs. The Supremes are calling this an overreach if they're trying to restrict rentals out of that HOA. So that's the latest, that, and like I said, it's been tried at least once this year where I read the legal brief on it. And again, they're not allowing it. So they're not allowing restrictions. They're allowing for rental properties. An HOA can't say, because we're an HOA, you can't put an ADU in the backyard. If there's room back there, it's within Arizona. This is a state law. Is that HOA in a city that has at least 75,000 population? Got to allow it.
This applies to Sun City and Sun City West too, correct? So any cities in Arizona.
That's correct. Yeah, again, as long as the original marketing, original CCNRs did not specifically restrict for rental property. Well, let me put it this way. That's just rental property. You can still put an HOA in there if you want to house your grandkids or you want to house, your grandparents. You can still put an HOA in, or you can still put an ADU in the backyard in Sun City. Yeah, so it's very broad. It's very specific that you cannot restrict. Cities, CCNRs cannot restrict this new state law.
Cool. Thank you.
Great. So the next slide here, Arizona water supply. Where do we get our water? If you've been in Arizona, the last few years, there's been a drought. We were in a 21-year drought. We got out of that drought 2 winters ago by a huge storm, about a week-long storm, about 150–160% of annual snowfall. Last year, we went back into a little bit of a drought with 88% of annual snowfall average. And of course, we're just coming into this year's winter season. But Arizona is fine. Again, tell your customers the headlines that we got that we're in a drought, that Arizona's running out of water, really are talking about the Colorado River, which is a third, it's 36% of our water. Reclaimed water, gray water, that's 5%. That's very important. Groundwater is the largest, and that's 41%. And then in-state rivers and the watershed, the lake system, is 18% of our water. So how come, we're so good at, how come our message is positive when it comes to, are you running out of water? It's because we have been planning for this really forever, but specifically since 1980. And we've always been a desert. So Arizona has always had to plan ahead for water. And like conversely, Atlanta has a 30-day water supply plan. California, Los Angeles has a 5-year water plan. not assured. We have 100-year assured water plan, which means if you get a permit to build something within an AMA, within an active management area, and most of all of Maricopa County, Pinal County are in an AMA. That means that if that city municipality gives you a permit to build it, you are assured 100 years worth of water for that. So anything that we bring on and bring into, our infrastructure has it's been calculated, and yes, we will have enough water for you. So like, for instance, SRP Salt River Project is in the process of raising 3 dams in the northeastern part of Arizona because there's been more snow, more rain over in that part of Arizona for the last 11, 12 years in their study. So they're raising the dams between 40 feet and 77 feet, which doubles the capacity of that pool of water for those lakes that, that can store more water because there's more snow, there's more rain. Okay, let's raise the dams. And SRP is an authority given by the federal government in 1912. So they don't have to ask anybody. They can just go ahead and raise those dams. So another question, I like to give to people in this is, if you were in charge, let's say you were a governor for a week of Arizona, and SRP came to you and said, hey, good news, we're going to have another 1,000 acre feet of water to deploy, to use over the next 2 years. How would you use it? How would you invest that water in Arizona? Would you put it in more agriculture? Would you put it in, cotton, cattle, citrus, like, historic uses of water? Most of the water went into agriculture. Would you put it into, manufacturing jobs? Would you put it into more homes? Where would you put the water? Where would you invest the water? So the next slide here, we can dive a little deeper into that. Well, before we get there, here's one thing to take away, that in the groundwater, 41% of our water supply is in the ground. We have a number of aquifers. In the East Valley, we have 3 main aquifers or alluviums of water that have been recharged, that SRP has put water from years when we've had more snow, more rain. They have reversed the pumps and charged these aquifers with a supply of 30 years of water. So we have 30 years of water, meaning if it doesn't snow or rain at all for the next 30 years, and everything that's built in the ground, everything that's permitted to be built, we have enough water for the next 30 years in the ground. That should be reassuring to everyone. So that's, again, that doesn't just happen. That's people that have been actively managing this since 1980. So let's go to the next slide here. So 1 acre foot of water is 325,000 gallons. It's basically 1 acre, which is 43,650 square feet. It's that 1 foot deep of water. That's a lot of water. SRP right now charges us $20 an acre foot of water. By comparison, San Diego is $200 for 1 acre foot, and Los Angeles is $300 for 1 acre foot. Los Angeles and San Diego are both looking at desalination, and if they come online, if the San Diego is ahead of Los Angeles in this study, in this effort, their acre foot of water will go from $200 to $2,000 per acre foot for the infrastructure to desalinate the Pacific Ocean. It's breathtakingly expensive to solve water problems when you haven't planned for them for decades, like Arizona has. So again, I don't want to throw San Diego or Los Angeles or California under the bus here, but they have some pretty serious infrastructure problems, and I don't know how you solve these things cheaply. So let's go on to the next. So here we go, 1980. You see where 1980 is. There's a big disparity between the amount of water that we used in Arizona. It looks like about 10 million acre feet of water. And the amount of people that lived here at that time looks like about 2 to 3 million people. And our output, our gross domestic output in Arizona was maybe 30-40 billion dollars. So that was in 1980. And now today, roughly today, we are using less water. We have about between 6 and 7 million people that live here. Our output has gone to about 300 billion. Well, we're using less water. How did we do that? How is that? after 50 years, 55, 54 years now since the Arizona legislature created the Arizona Department of Water Resources. Well, one of the things is retention. If you were building and developing homes back in 1980, you did not like this new law that came in because you had to calculate your 100-year flood, and then you had to create retention on site on your parcel. What most people did, what most developers did, is they built a depression on the side of their building, their planned building, and they sloped it and graded their parcel so that the water would go and just sit there and leach back into the water tables, leach back into the ground. Now, fast forward 55 years, 45 years, and we've got 45,000 retention basins across Maricopa County. And they're absolutely working. The water sits there, like on a big master plan neighborhood, you might see it like a big field, like a big open soccer field, for instance, but that whole neighborhood will drain into that soccer field, into that depression. If you're at a medical office, you might see a depression in the front xeriscaping, the landscape buffer between the sidewalk and where their parking lot is. Those depressions are specific calculations of depth and size to handle a 100-year water flood volume so that the water does not advance to the next parcel. Arizona or Phoenix generally drains in a southeasternly way. And so you can't let that water continue down. You have to calculate for that amount of water to sit on your parcel. So what we have is we have a water table that gets recharged anytime it rains. We only get about 9 inches of rain here every year, not that much, but when it does rain, we have to allow it to stay on land and leach back into the water. So that's one way. Another way is we don't have as much agriculture as we did before. An acre of agriculture, an acre of, alfalfa, it's very expensive. Walnuts, nuts, or avocados, they're very thirsty crops. A lot of the agricultural has left Maricopa County. It's left Arizona. And so now it's, instead of an acre of crops, it's now 6 homes. The average neighborhood has about 5 to 6 homes per acre, and houses use much less water than agriculture uses. These big plants, these big manufacturing plants, they're also very conscious about building a water tank underneath the fab plant. And once that tank is filled, they're very good about reuse, about reusing the water. So they don't use as much water as they used to. Also, Taiwan Semi Intel have put together a pact to clean all the rivers of non-indigenous plants, weeds, in other words, that are on the rivers, because they drink a lot of water. So for the next 30 years, those 2 companies have to fund crews that go and just clean the banks of the rivers, so that water, any rain or snow that comes down in a river system, doesn't get eaten up, drank up, I guess, by the weeds. It comes down and enters our lakes, and then can be sent down in the canal system, down to us where we can use it here in the valley. So
how fascinating. There are some really smart people in Arizona. So
yeah, there really are. So we're getting towards the end here. The last slide here, I want to just make sure that you guys know that we're very grateful to have the tech court here. Explosive growth in jobs and manufacturing jobs. These are not service jobs. Right now, our #1 employer in Arizona is PetSmart. And I think most of the people at PetSmart, like when you go in there and you walk around, nothing wrong with them, great people, working hard, but they don't make enough to buy a home. So we need manufacturing jobs to come into Arizona. These are meaty jobs, $70,000 to $150,000 jobs, maybe 2 per household. Some of these young families are coming into town from Taiwan, from Russia, from Mexico, from Dallas, they're recruiting all over the world to bring. They have about 2,000 that they've hired already for opening up this first fab. And they are going to have the American experience. They're on a 3-year expat rental contract where Taiwan Semi has basically purchased 3 new large apartment complexes and given them 36 months of living expenses. They can opt out of that, but most of them are staying until they're 36 months, getting established, getting a lay of the land, and then they're going to be able to buy a home. So they're about 2 years into this 36-month employment contract and, housing contract. So they'll start venturing out to buy homes, within the next year or so. Some have already decided that they're going to opt out and buy a home early. It's great. That's wonderful. But there'll be more and more of these, within the next 6 to 12 months.
So you have one more slide. Do you want me to advance to that?
That's just me. Yeah, you can advance to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The takeaway on Arizona water and electricity is that we're in good shape. I'm not going to, don't quote me on this, but we have about 7.5 million people that live here right now. And I've heard it said, quietly from SRP that we've got headroom for about 10 million people that live here. So that's good news. I mean, we have headroom as far as our infrastructure, our water and our electricity. They are not sitting on their hands. One of the biggest things in this election was Arizona 374, and that is the gas tax. The 18 cents that is added to every gallon of gas that funds our roads. It funds our improvement of our freeways and widening the 101 and putting new roads in when we need them. So that is I think it's a 15-year new act or new law that went in. It's the third time that we've had to renew it since the 90s, and good news is people voted that in. So that will fund all the new infrastructure, the road infrastructure that we need to continue to grow. And then the ADUs. I wanted to make sure you guys had at least a few ideas about what this accessory dwelling unit thing is that's coming, and really the teeth and the formality that the state has said to the 17 cities, that you have to allow these to come in for various reasons. So yeah. Yeah, so that's it, guys. Let me see if there's any questions.
So just real quick, I'm going to contribute. If any of you guys plan on going to R4, I would highly encourage you to go to the Global Exchange. So because if we're going to be helping people that work at the chip plants, maybe even I think, isn't there a working with international buyer designation or some classes on that? So you might think about jumping in on some of those things so that you understand varying cultures that we might be dealing with, and or even maybe becoming bilingual, right? Learning a new language. So those would just be some thoughts I have. And Tom, thank you. This was interesting. I took a lot of notes, and I had taken a class a couple of years ago when I went to the AAR convention, and they talked about the 30 years that we're actually helping California research how they can capture rainwater, because currently their rainwater goes into the ocean, and so they're not capturing any of that, right? So we're actually helping them do research because they do pull a big share of the Colorado. So fascinating stuff. I hope you guys took a lot of notes, and you can take this back to your clients and quiet the thoughts when people say Arizona's running out of water. So should we lose Tom? I think oh no, your video just went off. So any other final questions before we wrap up? Carolyn says we're optimistic. Okay. I think there's some studies though that back up what Tom's saying. So,
Yeah.
and Tom, are you okay if I send out your slides?
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. I'll send the slides out to everybody then.
So the trivia question, does anybody know what that garbage truck was called back in the 70s? Does anybody guess? It was called Godzilla. They called it because it looked like Godzilla coming.
Oh, how funny.
Is
I
there
didn't
any
look
other?
here.
I'm looking through here to see if there's any other questions. About ADUs, they've been allowing in Sun City. Okay, yeah. Well, guys, thank you for the time. I hope it was informative. I hope it was valuable for you. I'm happy to help you. If you have any other questions about these topics, if you have any commercial customers, I know Jessica's on the call with us now. She and I are working together on a couple of commercial clients. So happy to help. Got any questions about that too? So just reach out.
Awesome. All right, you guys have a great day. Nate's doing a KV Core, I believe. No? What are we doing tomorrow? We have something tomorrow. Anyway, check the calendar. We've got something going on tomorrow. So, it's the Team Leader Mastermind. So if you're thinking about making a team, growing a team, you can either come into the office or jump on Zoom. So, okay. All right, you guys have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.